Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you today. I want to thank you for your time. My name is Scott Huxley, Chief Operations Officer of Syscom Business Technologies. I've been with the company close to 4 years. It's my pleasure to be with you today and really talk on a topic that is of high importance, high value. We've had a tremendous amount of interest around this topic. So we're really looking forward in the brief time that we have together, the 30 minutes of going through this with you. I want to introduce our panelists with us today. I want to go ahead and introduce Jeremy. Go ahead and Jeremy, introduce to the people who you are.
Yeah, my name is Jeremy DeFrance, and I work with Scott at Syscom. I'm the VCIO, and I've been working with Scott and Syscom for a little over 2 years now.
Very cool. And then over to Leah, first time that you've been with us. I want to thank you, and indeed Natasha too. But Leah, I want to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to Syscom Business Technologies team for inviting us to co-host your webinar series with you today. My name is Leah Ubaldo, and I'm one of the channel success managers at ID Agent. I've got my colleague Natasha Boyko also on the call. She's Director of Channel Development at ID Agent. So we are looking forward to this webinar today. So I will go ahead and get started. A little background about ID Agent. We provide a comprehensive set of threat intelligence and security training solutions for organizations and individuals impacted by cyber incidents. We started off working with the U.S. government on the OPM, Office of Personnel Management breach back in 2015, about an estimated 21 million stolen records of people who had undergone background checks and personal information of the government employees, which led to the creation of ID Agents, Dark Web ID portal. During this time, security, especially cybersecurity, is important more now than ever. Since COVID-19, majority of the businesses have moved to a remote workforce, and we've seen a surge in phishing attacks, prying on people's vulnerabilities, which has become new territory and a major adjustment for people. So today we'll be discussing, what is the dark web, the dangers of the dark web, how businesses are affected, examples of the malicious activities currently happening during this time, and how to be aware of these dangers, and what tools and services you guys can utilize to keep your company and employees safe. Let's start off, what is the dark web? We hear about it, not sure, how we get there, but we know that it's a place for illegal activity. The best way to describe, the dark web is using an iceberg as an example. You have your surface web, which is, about 4% of the internet. This is where you are mostly familiar with your Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, retail and company sites. Then you have your deep web, which is comprised about 90% of non-searchable data. So that's webmail, online banking, restricted social media pages, and content. Finally, we have what we call the dark web. 6% of the internet that is intentionally hidden, which can't be accessed through any regular web browser. You do need a Tor system to enter into the dark web. This is where most of the illegal activity occurs. Now, today we're going to be spending some time going over the landscape of cybersecurity and how it impacts businesses. We'll take you through some of the screenshots on how cyber criminals are stealing your data. We want to give you an idea on how these breaches are happening. This ties into how your greatest risk are your employees. Cyber criminals try a number of ways to steal your information, and it comes down really to human error. 44% of breaches are from phishing emails, sending fake emails and tricking your employees or yourselves, into clicking links that contain malware. 30% of breaches are from compromised or stolen credentials. About 9%, is from hacking and ransomware. A cyber criminal or bad actor is hacking into a network, and placing ransomware for people to pay, Bitcoin or some sort of ransom for their data back. 5% is brute force attacks, which is an attempt to, crack a password or a username, or find a hidden web page or use a key, to encrypt the message. Using that trial and error approach and hopefully eventually getting it correct. These, can take seconds or years. Hackers target, the same systems every day or month, sometimes years, in hopes of getting in. 3% is malvertising, placing malware on advertising ads that you may think is legit, but it's not safe at all. And some other ways here is watering holes. Cyber criminals are putting malware into real websites that you're going on and capturing credentials, from you, or a user. And then web attacks, cyber criminals infiltrating a company's network and scanning for assets, of that company, using those vulnerabilities to access the company's network. So there is this concept of zero trust, and you have to understand or go by the mindset that everyone has been compromised. It's all about access management and making sure the right people have the right, secure access, using the right machines with the right privileges. Ultimately, monitoring those compromises by looking at it, from that individual access management level helps you keep an eye on that front door. I'm sure there have been times that employees have privileges beyond, their roles needed, or, them logging into machines that they shouldn't have access to, or role transitions, and you don't look at that access piece. That's a huge factor in creating a cyber security framework. Because of these breaches, we are seeing compliance laws across the world, starting with GDPR in Europe. This is, the first instance seeing compliance being mandatory. Now here in the U.S., in California, with California's Consumer Privacy Act and New York Shield Act, they're requiring small and large businesses, to have insight on what their employees are doing and reporting these breaches. This needs to be a priority for, checks and balances. This becomes increasingly complicated now, just because people are, moving to a remote workforce, and, how do you manage that visibility? This is important, and it's the law. It's only a matter of time, when all states will have, similar compliance laws. When your employees use their work credentials on websites like the ones listed here on my slide, it makes your business vulnerable to a breach. The question is, where are your company's work credentials been? This displays 9 ways your employee credentials can lead to a breach. Do you know if your employees are using their work credentials on any of these third parties? Even with the best intentions and employees, doing their day-to-day jobs, this is still a risk. I guess the best way to be alerted if there is a compromise from these third parties is with a dark web monitoring system. The ability to be able to be notified if your company is at risk due to an exposed credential. A lot of the time, companies that experience a breach may not publicly disclose they've had a breach until perhaps weeks or months later. And at that time, these cyber criminals have already stolen and sold the data on the dark web. Another thing to think about is, what do you do when you onboard and offboard an employee? When someone leaves your company, how do you know if they had an Amazon account or a Dropbox account, and they're leaving company data, on those third parties, and you have to kind of be aware of that. Just shutting off an email isn't going to limit access. It's important to monitor, take action when someone leaves the company. There are fines, if you are a company not protecting your company's data, which ties back to compliance.
Yeah, Leah, I'll jump in here just quickly on a quick story about the 9 ways slide. So I was talking to one of our other partners, and they were talking to one of their clients who is a small business owner, and they ran a dark web scan using our platform. And one of the credentials that had popped up that was exposed was an employee that had been fired over 3 years ago. So they terminated this employee, and it turns out that the password that was exposed on the dark web, and you can see it in the scan that we can run, the password looked really familiar to the business owner. So she kind of paused the meeting and actually went out into the office and realized that that password that was exposed on the dark web from an employee that had been fired over 3 years ago was still the active password to their bank account. So during that meeting, she was actually able to log into their bank account and see, the access there was over $1 million in cash available, all of their credit lines, because I guess what had happened when they terminated the employee, their offboarding procedure at that point was just to write down all the passwords the employee was using, put it on a Post-it note, and just continue to use them again, rather than do a complete overhaul of every system and change those passwords. So it was really an eye-opening moment for that business owner, because she could see that the risk was already out there. I mean, luckily nothing bad had happened at this point, but that password was out there for the taking. So it's helped them put together better onboarding and offboarding procedures and really just have better and safer password policies.
Yeah, thanks, Natasha, for that. Yeah, these things are real, and it's crazy. Let me just switch my slide here. So the dark web, it is real, and cyber criminals are, they've gotten really sophisticated. So these cyber criminals are advertising for job postings, recruiting people with design or engineering system experience to work, promising a payout of over $700,000. If you're a really good cyber criminal with positive reviews, you may even end up with a pay increase. So, just shows the level of sophistication that that's increasing with these cyber criminals and bad actors. So let's go through some examples, through some snapshots here. The dark web, it's just like your surface web in the sense that it even has its own version of an eBay and an Amazon, selling people's information such as credit card numbers, compromised credentials, and other data. They're selling this information and receiving reviews, on the stolen data. If you are a 5-star, hacker, cyber criminal, you definitely have credibility in the space and reoccurring customers. It's become increasingly easy to purchase stolen credit cards on the dark web. Here's another example of various databases available. This one is showing, Time Warner Cable's business class, which reflects, all businesses, of all sizes, and that leaked database here on the dark web. Here's another snapshot. It's really crazy what you can find. This is a posting selling the Kansas voter database with about 1.8 million voter information, which includes full name, address, phone number, date of birth, gender, voter status. This year is an election year, and some states are moving to online voting, due to COVID. This is a huge risk that this information is out on the dark web. And here is a list of the voter information being sold on dark web, from various states. I showed you Kansas. We've got DC, Georgia, Florida, and this is really just the ones that I can kind of fit onto this slide. Here's a database with email addresses and passwords being sold for just $10. There are even ratings with this posting. Looks like the quality of the information was given 5 stars. And sellers' communication with the buyers, that was 4 stars. Sometimes if it's a holiday, you might even receive a holiday discount for this information. This is a curated list of credit card information, of the California business owners with high credit scores. Anytime you see full, on a data set, it just kind of means that this is enough information provided to commit identity fraud. So this posting was so popular that it sold out, or it's basically, out of stock. Since we've moved to a remote environment, workforce, people are using Zoom, Teams, WebEx, to stay connected and conducting virtual meetings. There are dangers in those as well. Hackers, breached Zoom and posted their client Zoom accounts, on the dark web, around the beginning of COVID. This data included email addresses, passwords, meeting IDs, host keys, names, and account type. A couple of suggestions informing your employees when using these virtual meeting outlets: use a waiting room so you have control on who comes into your meeting. Have everyone introduce themselves so you know who's on the call. Have control of screen sharing. Have people ask permission to share their screen with you. If you're presenting a deck or presentation, to make sure you hide any other company tabs or spreadsheets, that's sensitive information that shouldn't be seen. And also change meeting room passwords frequently so that it's not the same one. Cyber criminals are using ransomware for public extortion of a company. General guidance is that if you receive ransomware, do not pay, because you'll probably not get your data back. Cyber criminals are realizing that there's an opportunity here to take this a step further, saying, fine, if you don't agree to paying the ransom, then we're going to release the data on the dark web to ruin your company's reputation. And we saw this happen to Travelex. So, they were hit with ransomware and asked to pay the ransom. Travelex paid the ransom, and the cyber criminals released the company's data anyways. There were personal information of their customers on the dark web. Really just showing you an example of how these cyber criminals can get a foothold in your organization, and cause some serious damage to your reputation. This is why it's important to have, a comprehensive security solution plan for your business. And here's another way that, and a method that cyber criminals are capitalizing on how easy it is to execute, these attacks. It's not the kid in a hoodie in a basement anymore. These are very sophisticated, companies that are making it easy for cyber criminals to attack. One of those is ransom as a service. You sign up, it's about $200, $300 a month. You get a nice branded platform, as you can see, that you can log into. You add in all the people or the companies, the companies that you want to attack. They have pre-made campaigns and phishing emails for you to send out with ransomware attached to it. Then you monitor your ransomware campaign through your dashboard. You can basically see who opened the phishing email you sent, who clicked on that link, who paid the ransom. This helps the cyber criminal organize the different ransomware, they put out on people and businesses. You can even chat with the people. You can withdraw the money or Bitcoin that you receive. There's even a support link for customer service. It's just crazy how, there's these platforms available for these cyber criminals, to be successful in their attacks. Now we'll move into some of these easy ways, cyber criminals infiltrate and breach a network, which is through phishing. There are now phishing kits or how-to guides that can be found on the dark web. How to hack landing pages with popular sites such as Facebook. Cyber criminals are providing step-by-step instructions on how to hack, Facebook ID using a phishing attack, and even providing, certain codes to use. If you take a look at this Facebook login page, it looks identical to each other. However, one of these landing pages is not, the real Facebook login page. When a cyber criminal puts a Facebook link in a phishing email, and that end user clicks on it, it looks like they're about to sign into their Facebook account, but it's not the real landing page. These cyber criminals have now tricked you into thinking you are logging into Facebook when it's actually a fake landing page, then collecting your information and your credentials. We've seen a surge of phishing emails, especially around COVID. Here are some examples of a COVID-19 phishing email that, we are seeing recently. Looks like it's coming from the CDC, but it's actually a phishing email. There are various ways you can identify it's a phishing email, only if you take the time, to look closely at it, such as the email address, if there's poor grammar, and if there's a suspicious link in that email. Phishing attacks aren't just, being sent through emails. They're being sent through text messages. This text message is alerting, an end user about their government aid, and to click on the link to provide, to apply for that. These cyber criminals, they're preying on the vulnerabilities of people to cause malicious activity. Education is key, informing your employees, how to identify a phishing email. Now that we all have to essentially wash our hands for at least 20 seconds, we should all take 20 seconds to read an email and see who it's coming from. Notice the detail in the phishing email. Are there grammar errors? Is there a sense of urgency to act on something? Does the email address look suspicious? If you receive an internal email that looks like it's coming from a manager or a colleague requesting you for you to take some sort of action, whether it's to be, clicking a link or transferring funds, you want to question that, or even ask the person directly, hey, did you send this email with this request? Take that time, to question that. The financial and insurance sector has always been a target due to the kinds of, data it collects from its customers. The sector remains a favorite playground for the financially motivated, organized, criminal elements at, about 63% being external actors and 18% being internal actors. Some of the top causes for breaches in the financial and insurance sector, approximately 30% is, web application attachments, 25% of miscellaneous error. It's a bit disturbing when you realize that your employees' mistakes account roughly for the same number of breaches as external parties who are actively attacking you. Around 80% of phishing attacks and business email compromises are, successful in this sector. 40% of finance organizations, they do not have a person or department in place to address these credential attacks. Here are just some of the few examples of the largest financial breaches in the last few years. Equifax being the largest with about 145 million records stolen back in, 2017, which included names, date of birth, social security numbers, addresses, driver's license. The impact of that breach like this and so many can lead to, direct financial loss, network downtime and lost productivity, reputation and competitiveness, regulations and fines, and the list goes on. Another vulnerable sector is the manufacturing industry. The average total cost of a data breach in the manufacturing sector in 2019 was about $5.2 million. 34% of all documented attacks targeted manufacturers using password dumper malware and stolen credentials to hack into systems and steal data. In this particular industry, we've also seen internal employees misusing their access to, abscond with data. The breaches that are occurring in the manufacturing industry are traced to, web application vectors, stolen or misused privileged credentials, and cyber espionage. 90% of small manufacturing businesses who experienced a breach felt the attack impacted their reputation, of having those have been breached. 33% report, brand damage. 24 reported a loss of clients. 30% have been unable to grow, in line with previous expectations. 33% said it took over 6 months, for the business to get back on track. 97% found it, it impacted the business ability to operate, and 27% reported the breach caused, customer delays. Major events, such as the coronavirus pandemic, create new opportunities for these cyber criminals to exploit. But having, a smart defense doesn't let them. These tips can help, keep your systems and data safer in uncertain times. Tips to follow to protect your data and employees. Couple ones to highlight. Get the facts. Use information from reliable sources. Think twice before clicking on any link. Encourage safe password practices. Don't write passwords on sticky notes. I know some of you are guilty of this. I know I have been. Have a great, dark web monitoring system in place. Ask for help. Consult a security expert, such as Syscom to, plan effective strategies and get innovative solutions in place for your company. With some simple steps and the right tools, you can protect your company and employees. Increase password security. Educate on what a phishing email looks like. Stay alert. Beware of captive vulnerability zones. Those are those free hotspots or Wi-Fi's, that other people can access. Another tool to think about is an IAM system, identity and access management, which is two-factor authentication tool to verify that you are the user logging into a system. single sign-on feature enables your employees to access, the websites, the apps that they are frequently using during the day, with one set of credentials. So you don't have 10 sticky notes on your desk. Single sign-on also helps maintain strong password procedures. This reduces password fatigue and calling, IT to help, reset a password every time. Password server to help keep, store passwords to various websites and apps the person uses. Some of these password servers also help generate a complex password that you can use and save to this server. Another tool, that's great that can help to be proactive is dark web monitoring, a tool that can scan the dark web for any compromised credentials, that are found that are actively being sold on the dark web. Having this alert system allows you to respond to a threat immediately, and to prevent a major breach. A dark web monitoring system, like Dark Web ID that we supply and Syscom provides, can monitor your company's domain on a 24/7 basis of any compromises found on the dark web and show you passwords that have been found associated with that compromised email address, and also showing if there's any personal identity information found on the dark web. Not only the ability to monitor your own company's domains of any compromises, but also monitoring your supply chain. Those third-party vendors that you partnered with, they have a hand in your business. Monitoring their domains for compromises, for vulnerabilities, is also important to help protect, your company and your employees. And just for an example, Target, as we all know, the Target breach in 2013, hackers logged into Target's network using credentials stolen from Target's HVAC partner, which they stole through a phishing email. Hackers were able to upload malware program onto Target's payment and security system and remain there undetected. About 110 million customer credit card and personal information was stolen in that breach. This breach cost Target nearly $300 million. If you are able to monitor third parties for compromises or vulnerabilities, that will help prevent, a breach within your own company. And in conjunction, Dark Web ID, monitoring, security awareness training is just as important to implement to your employees. 32% of breaches involve some form of phishing, just like Target. 90% of security breaches are inadvertently unintentional, and because by human error, 92% of malware is delivered by an email. So being able to educate your employees and users on those phishing dangers is essential. Teaching them how to identify a phishing email, may reduce your risk for getting breached. At the end of the day, your employees are the weakest link in cybersecurity. You may have the most up-to-date and strongest security systems in place, but this will be a waste of investment if you don't also train and test your staff. Threats are, ever evolving and becoming more sophisticated and harder to detect. Regular training on the latest criminal tactics will help you mitigate risk. Your employees are your first and primary, line of defense against online crime. Equip them with the knowledge and skills that they need to protect themselves and your businesses from these criminal elements. And then with, this is just kind of the Bullfish ID tool that us and Syscom offers, for phishing, simulation, security awareness training that, can definitely help mitigate a breach. And also employee credentials on the dark web are a hacker's hole-in-one. So Syscom is offering a free dark web scan today, and if you want to contact Scott or Jeremy, they would be happy to assist with that. And thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. I know we had we come close to 2:30 here. I know we had some questions. I want to either Lee or Natasha can lead in with the questions that we received kind of ahead of the webinar. A lot of great content. I enjoy going through that. Very relevant to everyone on the call today, for sure. There was a question from Steve in the chat regarding to the slides of the presentation. We can make that available to those that kind of request it. There will be a recording though. that'll be made available for folks as well. So I did answer Steve's question in the boxes. Wanted to kind of reiterate that. And then I guess Leah or Natasha, you want to lead in with the questions that we received kind of ahead of today's webinar, so some kind of just questions that we received from specific individuals ahead of today's webinar.
Sure. Yeah, Leah, I can take these. So I'm just pulling up the questions real quick. So Jennifer asked what information about our company is available. So, you know, every company varies. What our platform provides is the email and password of any users that have been compromised. And then we can also share other categories of information associated with that particular compromised credential. Sometimes we actually know what website it was compromised from. Sometimes we can tell you where on the dark web our analysts found that. So I would just reach out to Jeremy or Scott to get your company's dark web scan, and then you can check out what's out there for your particular organization. Jeff asked, are passwords available for people to see and use? So yeah, so on all of the credentials that we provide, or most of the credentials that we provide, are going to have the full clear text password there. If the password is on the report that you're getting from Dark Web ID, that means that it is indeed out there on the dark web, available for anyone to purchase, or sometimes just take from those different databases that are out there.
Okay.
Jonathan asked, how quickly can you access the dark web and obtain information? So there's really not a clear answer there. So our analysts are monitoring the dark web 24/7. So they're constantly looking at databases, different forums, message boards, chat rooms, areas where hackers are selling or auctioning off the data that they're stealing. So that's happening all the time, and we're updating you every single day of new compromises that are out there. You know, if I'm understanding your question correctly, it's also, you know, the timing depends, and I think Leah mentioned this, the timing really depends on when hackers are putting this information out there. So sometimes they do hold on to data for a little while before they'll put it out on the dark web for sale or auction or whatever. So the timing can vary. You know, we can present something to you in our report that may have actually been compromised a couple of months ago, that it just took a little bit of time for that hacker to share the information. So it really depends, but our goal is to get those compromises in your hands so that you can take action as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it is amazing. I think, you know, we certainly value the partnership with you guys, and it's been a big help to our clients for sure, as we help them through this. But it's amazing the amount of times that you find active and live credentials. To speak to Natasha's story earlier, security, you know, often people kind of need that fact of it could be you. A lot of times we kind of feel like, well, you know, it's not going to happen to me, but I think those stories that are real stories from you know, obviously unfortunate circumstances that kind of refresh everyone's mind that it could happen, and then how can you potentially prevent it? And we ourselves have seen live credentials be out there. So yeah, it's been very enlightening to say the least. So I think that's what we had for the question. We had like 3, I think, didn't we? 3 or 4, yep. Something like that. Okay.
Yep.
Good deal. Well, I want to thank everyone for their time. We added some time here to kind of address those questions, and then to Leah and Natasha's point here, for those that do want that information, we're very happy to make sure that you receive it. Please reach out to me directly, or Jeremy as well, to obtain that information should you want that. Most of all, I want to thank both of you, Jeremy also, for being on the webinar today. A lot of great content, enjoyed going through it, and I hope that the people on the webinar today got value from it. I'm sure they did, but I want to thank all of our panelists today. I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure our viewers did too, so I want to thank all of you. And with that, we will let people get back to their busy work from home lifestyle.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.